Hello everyone, it's Edwin here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be doing the vinyl tag, the quarantine edition. This was created by Dylan over at Noble Records in, I think he's in North Carolina? One of the Carolinas. And it's 20 questions. Got them printed off here. And vinyl tag is kind of a fun thing that we do usually at the start of the year. 20 questions, kind of some deeper in looks at our collections and our thoughts and our experiences and all that kind of thing. So let's get into it. 20 questions. So the first question is, what's your favorite record? I'm going to put this here. What's your favorite record from your home state or city? Well, for those of you who don't know, I live in a place called Nanaimo, British Columbia, Canada. It's on beautiful Vancouver Island, just west of the city of Vancouver. And there's no question, there's only really, we do have some great local musicians, but the one person that really put us on the map is Diana Krall. This is a very best of Diana Krall. I went to high school with Diana. She's just an amazing singer, songwriter, voice, and yeah, no question, Diana Krall, great, obviously jazz, but she does explore other things in different albums she's put out, but amazing. Put that there. An album you highly recommend. This is one, I was trying to think, what could I show that's a little bit different? And this is one you don't see much on the vinyl community. This is Pacific Ocean Blue by Dennis Wilson, formerly of the Beach Boys. And this was his solo album that nobody expected it to do anything. And it sort of became a bit of a cult classic. Certainly shows his tender side. He was a bit of a party guy and liked to be part of the action, and I think this sort of showed a much gentler, smoother Dennis Wilson. Especially you're coming from, Big Brother Brian, right? A tip for the beginner. I guess this is, a tip for the beginner collector, someone that's getting into vinyl. Don't be afraid to try new things, new genres, listen to different records. I think one thing I enjoy is, the different sound qualities, the different pressings give. I would say have a decent turntable with a good cartridge and decent speakers. I think a system where you have an amp or a receiver, a turntable, and the speakers is better than an all-in-one. And just have fun and enjoy. Be a part of the vinyl community. There's some good advice. First record that really got you into deeper music. I was a bit of a, new romantic, mod, preppy guy in high school. So my music was pretty clean, and I used to laugh at people that listen to things like this. And one day I kind of got into this, and this was my gateway to Led Zeppelin and a lot of other 70s harder rock type music that I completely ignored for many, many years. So Led Zeppelin 2. An obscure record people may not know about. This is all, depends on what you're into and that sort of thing. This is McDonald and Giles. 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 This was two members of King Crimson, Ian McDonald and Michael Giles. And after the famous King Crimson debut, they left the band and did their own collaboration together. This is a repress. This is a great album. Highly recommend it. Prog, jazz, lots of different elements. Very, very good. A group who you collect all their albums or try to. I mean, I do with a lot. And there's the obvious ones, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones, The Who. You know, those would be ones where I'm pretty much sure I have most of everything. David Bowie be another one. But the one I've been working on is Tom Waits. And this is the reason I'm showing this record is because this one's really hard to find. This is Bone Machine, which of course was one of those 1990 releases, so there weren't a lot pressed on vinyl. And I managed to find this one finally, so that gets me ever closer to completing Tom Waits. A band whose second album was better than their first. Van Morrison. This is Astral Weeks. This was his second album. First album, Blowin' Mind, which of course featured Brown Eyed Girl. And then he comes up with this jazz, avant-garde, folk, psych, fusion masterpiece. Without a doubt, one of the greatest second albums ever of all time. Astral Weeks. If you don't know this, I recommend this. What album have you listened to most in your life? Sgt Pepper's. Simply because it was my dad's favorite album. He listened to it all the time, so I was listening to it even if I didn't want to. And then, of course, you know, when I got going on my own, I became a huge Beatles fanatic. And just seeing if that's better. No, it's got to go that way. And yeah, so Sgt Pepper's easily the album I've listened to the most. An album with a crazy story. It's a challenging question. I've come up with Nebraska, Bruce Springsteen. So why this is a crazy story is that when, like a lot of singers and bands, Springsteen went into the studio and he did a rough cut of every song on this album, just him and acoustic guitar, just to lay it out so the band could come in, the E Street Band, and they had a pathway. They knew exactly where they were going. So it was done very roughly, very simply, just lay it down. And that's sort of the template of, then the band comes in and they record a studio. So E Street Band comes in, they book all the studio time, they spend weeks recording Nebraska, and when they went to mix it, let's try to forget who the producer was. I should know this, but I can't see it on here, so I'm going to move on. They preferred the raw acoustic mix that Springsteen did by himself in like a day. And that's what became Nebraska. The band tracks were never released. So that's a crazy story, I think. Your collecting pet peeve. I guess a pet peeve would be when you try to go buy records from an individual that's selling them and they have them priced crazy high because they read online or in a local newspaper that vinyl's back and people are going to pay crazy amounts. Records are worth so much. And it's like everything you collect, you know, like if it's not pristine in the original packaging with no marks, no, you know, creases, perfect edges, perfectly clean record like it's never come out. If you don't have all of that and it's not something that wasn't produced, you know, hugely because it was so popular, then you might have something to charge for. But, you know, when you go to someone's house or, you know, a record show and you know, they're trying to sell like, you know, Boney M for $40 or something ridiculous just because it's vinyl. That's a pet peeve. I mean, come on. Like, just because it's a record doesn't mean it's worth something. So, you know your values, know what they're worth, and charge fairly, right? We'll all pay if it's worth it. An album or genre people would be surprised to know you like. I mean, I do like all kinds of music. I'm not, you know, if it's good, I will give it a chance and I will listen to it and I will, you know, probably enjoy it to some degree. You know, I have a 22-year-old son, so obviously rap was big in his life. And of course, I, being the wise father, I had to show him early rap when it came out. So this is Little Run DMC. And yeah, again, I like some Beatsy Boys. I like some Run DMC. I'm not I'm not hugely into it, but that would be something that people would be like, "What? You like rap?" A record from the year you were born. Well, I was probably born in one of arguably the greatest years ever of music release. I was born in 1968. So you had the White Album, you had Odyssey and Oracle, you had the Village Green Preservation Society, you had, oh my God, the list just goes on. Big Brother and the Holding Company, you had, but you also had this. An album I don't really show that much. This is Jimi Hendrix' Electric Ladyland. This is a nice Japanese pressing I have. No obi, but it's got the book in the inside here. Of course, I don't want to show the band front cover. That's the middle. So that's Jimi Hendrix' Electric Ladyland. Show a 10-inch record and your opinion on 10-inch records. I've only got maybe 3. And I'm not opposed to 10-inch records. First, I'll show you what it is. This is Kasabian. This is a British Britpop / almost light psych rock band. This was their first album, their debut, simply called Kasabian. I first discovered Kasabian because they opened for Oasis on a tour that we went to. And we actually my wife and I became big fans of this. And they released all their albums originally as 10 inches, kind of like Radiohead did. Now, I don't mind the format, but my pet peeve is, how do you store them? There's my record bag, and you got all this. So you go to file it, and it slides that way, and this sticks out in my shelf. And I'm forever, when you pull out the record beside this, I'm forever trying to get rid of that crazy crease. So that would be my pet peeve against 10 inches. Share an interesting fact about a song or an album. Another great question. We all know this album. This is Legend, Bob Marley. And the song I am talking about is second song on side 2, I Shot the Sheriff. Now, does anybody know what I Shot the Sheriff is about? Well, I Shot the Sheriff is about Bob Marley's girlfriend who wanted to be on birth control, and he didn't want her on birth control. And in the town in Jamaica they were living in, it was the sheriff that handed out the birth control pills. Hence, I Shot the Sheriff. Very interesting. I never knew that story, and I heard it some time ago, and I was like, what? Anyway, I did Google it before this, and they say it's true. So, I Shot the Sheriff. An album with an animal on the front cover. This is Blur. This is Park Life, of course, with the song Park Life. Girls and Boys, End of a Century. Just one of the probably greatest Brit rock albums of all time. Very, very great album cover. Show an album with crazy artwork. Well, I went for something completely different. Now ignore the Obi strip. I'm going to go with the Beatles' White Album. I mean, it's genius, isn't it? It's just a plain... It's not going to focus because it's white. Maybe it'll focus on the Obi strip. There we go. Yeah, the Beatles' White Album. Crazy artwork. I mean, can you imagine releasing an album with just raised Beatles embossed and a number on the bottom? That's crazy, man. But, the Beatles could do it. And, again, it's not going to focus because it's it's all white, but maybe the Obi strip was a good thing. Anyway, crazy artwork, the White Album. There's a great exhibit where this guy collected White Albums, tens of thousands of them, and they're all in different arrays of yellowing and water damage and pristine white and whatever. And he created a display in a storefront in New York where he covered the entire store with Beatles White Albums. There you go, it's art. A good album that you can find for cheap. This one's hard because prices are different in different places. But I'm going to pull out this one. Some good old Willie Nelson. This is Stardust. And I have this album because of the third song on side one, Blue Skies. I love that song. You can get this dirt cheap. And this is a great album. An album that requires an acquired taste. I'm going to go with Some Bitches Brew by Miles Davis. I remember buying this as a teenager on CD because every, top 500 albums you read that you must listen to was this. And I remember coming home from the record CD store, putting it on, I was like, what the hell is this? It sounded like, it just sounded weird. I couldn't get into it. And anyway, years later, I came back to it, and of course now I love it. And that's one definitely I recommend, definitely an acquired taste, definitely different. And the 20th question, the last one, is show your most recent find. Well, I just picked this little number up the other day. Something missing from my collection. This is Velvet Underground Load It. This was the album that Cale had left, and it was just basically Lou Reed and Doug Yule, and Mo Tucker on drums and Sterling Morrison on lead guitar. This had Sweet Jane on it, and rock and roll, and just a wonderful album. This is an original. I was missing this from my collection, so I was super happy to find that. There you go, guys. There is my video. I hope you liked it. I hope I showed some different things, and I hope you learned a little bit more about me and my musical tastes and vinyl. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks, Dylan, for doing that.